right, let me know if you can see and hear me.
I can see and hear you, Dr. Long. How are you today, Pamela?
Great, Kevin. Thank you so much. I really appreciated what everybody is sharing, and I look forward to sharing my thoughts here. Hopefully, I can get through them all.
Well, fantastic. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and hit share mode, and then just let me know when you'd like me to advance the slides, please. But before we get started, let me digress for a moment because I'd sure like to inform our
Everybody is
audience
sharing,
as
and
to Dr. Long, your background and credentials in this area, because I know this is going to be a real tour de force for us. Pamela Denise Long is Principal Project Manager and Implementation Consultant at Youth Centrics. Denise holds an informal
everybody is
audience
sharing,
as
and
organizational development, MS in learning and cognition, and BHS in allied health. Her specialty is knowledge translation, mobilization, management in equity-focused public policy, and organizational initiatives. Dr. Long is an award-winning business consultant for implementing trauma-informed diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. A seventh-generation American and media personality featured at Newsweek, Fox News, WVON, the Griot Politics, Black News Channel, and many more. Dr. Long, again, welcome and looking forward to your presentation.
fantastic.
But we do have something in chat from someone.
That's from me. I'm just sharing some resources with people as we go.
Fantastic. Here we go. Let me go ahead and go back into our presentation. I'm going to forward this to, and then I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. If I show webinar and mute and go.
Fantastic. So the topic I'm discussing today is about native-born labor sourcing and talent management plan. It originated from two artifacts, an article I wrote for Newsweek titled, Mr. President, Americans Don't Need Good Vibes, We Need an America's First Agenda. That is what the link is in your chat box. And then a white paper, if you will, that I wrote called The 3-Point Plan to Unite America. You can advance the slide. So in our time together, I plan to accomplish three things. One, upend the accusation that it is racist to design a native-born labor sourcing strategy, identify a few key judicial decisions and legislative actions that are already on the books that can help make, not let, but make internal talent management happen. And I'll share some written resources along the way in the chat box. Next slide, please. Kevin, I can't see you because I'm speaking, so I'm just gonna go off of the thing. So ultimately, this conversation about mass immigration and the workforce for semiconductor manufacturing begs the question about the impacts of a loose labor market. A loose labor market, meaning too much competition, replaces American workers with alternative sources of labor via mass legal immigration, mass illegal immigration, and outsourcing, as Brian's report made clear. The current border crisis further proves that mass illegal immigration is not just about people who are farm workers and so-called low-skill, low-wage jobs. For some estimates, we've admitted nearly 10 million border crossers of various educational backgrounds and skill levels into the nation since 2021. How many of those new arrivals will compete for jobs related to semiconductor manufacturing? Next slide, please.
Hi,
what
Colin.
image
Hi,
comes to
Leslie.
mind for you when I
was
say
opening up
tech
with this one, but I
worker?
got some other real
So
good
the
ones
image
coming.
that comes to mind for you
I
not
know
just
her. I've had her
because
on my
you are
channel.
racist, but there's a particular image that
She's showing
comes
how
to mind for you, a
ridiculous
particular
the left
look,
is.
because you're paying attention to the trends that Brian, as well as the previous speaker, Steve, just illuminated. So what I've heard
Colin,
someone cleverly say is
how are they
that if the
covering the
classic
Trump
film
peace
Jurassic Park
possible
was
plan
made today,
over there
Samuel L.
in Europe?
Jackson would likely not be the lead software engineer. He would not be the image that popped into your mind when I say tech worker or software engineer. And it's not because Americans won't do the work, won't function in STEM careers, aren't interested in technology. When you take inventory, it's because they have been replaced. And when you take inventory of the semiconductor manufacturing process, which you should be able to see on your screen, you cannot see that
Basically,
on your
she's
screen
talking
right now.
about they've been replacing
What
us
I would
all
ask
along
you is,
because of
of those
quotas.
tasks, you can advance, Kevin. When we think about the job tasks that relate to semiconducting, semiconductor manufacturing, there are tasks across the span of careers. There's welding, there's sand collection, there's all the processes related to transportation, there's driving. There are many jobs that Americans would do to participate in the semiconductor manufacturing needs of our nation. And so it's no coincidence that in this period of mass legal and illegal immigration, some business interests and political interests are now promising to remove barriers to career entry, where Americans, as Steve highlighted, have been forced to purchase a bachelor's degree, master's preferred, to gain even entry-level skill development. And so let's talk about,
is it the left
the moral
protesting or is it
obligation that the
patriots there
United States
protesting?
has to ensure that Americans are served by our economy. So a Forbes 2024 Forbes advisory survey revealed that across generations, 20 to 32% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved. 2/3 of survey respondents in 2024 said that their low savings was due to high costs of living. 1/3 noted that debt obligations affected their ability to save. And as the previous speakers shared, and other speakers today will confirm, the United States has stumbled in ensuring that the labor needs of the nation are met by American workers first and foremost.
Intentionally,
and so, for
part of their
me,
plan.
Americans First is about the people. As Senator Tom Cotton correctly noted, America is not just an economy with a country, it is a country with an economy. And that country is just a place without the prosperity and security of its people, Americans. So Americans First means that the US public policy for labor sourcing includes a plan to facilitate the economic stability and maximum human development of America's working age adults and the communities and families that depend upon us. This includes the actively participating workforce, those who are counted in the labor force participation rate, which as of August 2024, the St. Louis Fed Reserve reports is 62.7% of Americans. The Americans First accounts for future workers, so the talent pipeline of college professionals, tradesmen, and service workers. And it also accounts for the displaced or disaffected Americans who want a job but can't find one for fair wages and satisfactory work conditions. Americans First means that we honor and, when needed, modify trade agreements that require acceptance of foreign workers into U.S. labor market or require outsourcing of jobs to other countries. Americans First means that our nation uses foreign labor as a supplemental labor source of last resort after ensuring that every working age American has an opportunity, ample access points to enter the job market, clearly laid out on-ramps to receive training, job recruitment, job retention, and or business funding to fulfill the current workforce needs and thrive in meeting demands for emerging technology.
I know they win if you don't
America's First
try.
means we do away with the idea that legal mass immigration is good,
Can you
illegal
hear
is
me over the
bad,
video?
and we challenge
Okay.
those who think that fixing the immigration system means welcoming mass legal immigration and mass illegal immigration. So, what we know is that there is ample legal precedents to legally put Americans first. So let's cover some of those precedents in the remaining time that I have. If the data from this panel is true, it stands to reason that there is a potential 14th Amendment equal protections argument against the whole of government approach that the United States has taken to ensure that foreign graduates and workers receive resources and wraparound services that American citizens do not receive. That violation of the 14th Amendment Equal Protections Clause is particularly a cause of action when current citizens and legacy groups like the Black Americans, descendants of US slaves, and survivors of Jim Crow are not afforded the same red carpet that new arrivals and outsourcing immigrants and the like are provided. In fact, the June 2023 Supreme Court argument or a ruling about affirmative action.
You mean they're not even talking about it? Some of your leaders from over there came over to the White House, and it looks like they're real close to having a peace deal to stop the Ukraine war, the Ukraine money laundering war.
Two of the conservative justices made it very clear that Black Americans, descendants of US slaves and free Negroes, are protected by injured class status, not race. So that affirmative action decision itself lends itself toward tailoring an American labor sourcing plan that prioritizes citizens who've been discriminated against. Those justices were clear that the interclass protections of Black Americans do not apply to all Black people. So it doesn't apply to Black immigrants, for example, who are often who often are seen in hiring as well as recruitment for education, the positions that we're talking about here. So there's no delineation in who's receiving those admissions to colleges. In the final ruling, for example, Chief Justice Roberts wrote, "Nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities and governments from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise." But Justice Thomas, in his concurrent opinion, went on to state that even today, nothing prevents the states from according an admissions preference, they were talking about colleges, to identified victims of discrimination. In his concurrence, Justice Thomas provides examples of US case law that show that programs, like hiring programs, that redress the impacts of previous discrimination, like amplifying the education needs for Americans, have passed strict scrutiny when multi-generational Black Americans benefited most or even exclusively. So my challenge today for those who are listening, who are elected officials, activists, and advocates and the like is, how can we apply that SCOTUS ruling to put Americans first in hiring, given the data, ample data, that shows in many ways our needs have been placed secondary to business interest? So one of the things that Project 2025 got right, moving forward with recommendations, is to increase the funding to HBCUs. I was shocked to learn at the 2023 White House HBCU Conference Week that the government has prioritized exporting education and has taken a whole of government approach to help colleges internationalize their campus. I'm in the process of completing a deep dive into researching that angle, the full funding of HBCUs and a whole of government approach to ensuring a native-born talent management pipeline. So that white paper and research paper will be out soon, talking about how we can serve the semiconductor manufacturing and other STEM needs through
Americans
conscious
can
choice.
do those jobs.
Another legal precedent that can be used is the Local Public Works Capital
You
Development
don't know that if China's going to put programming into those chips.
76. As originally
Ones
written,
with like
this
an
law
off
prioritized
switch when they
citizen
want to turn it
populations
off.
with whom the US government has special relationships due to historical practices of discrimination. 42 USC Chapter 80, Subchapter 1 states the following about local public works. Except to the extent that the
Oh,
Secretary
wow.
determines otherwise, no grant made under public.
For those listening, Colin is saying that the High Court in England has stopped the hotel housing of the illegals, a nationwide thing. Is there a lot of protest now from the left, and they're trying to file lawsuits and all that kind of crap?
Works shall be made under this chapter for any
Got to keep the
local
illegals
public
there,
works projects unless the applicant
and you got to
gives
keep paying for it.
satisfactory assurance to the
That's your
Secretary
replacement.
that at least 10% of the amount of each grant shall be expended for minority business enterprises. For purposes of this paragraph, the term minority business enterprise means a business of at least 50% of ownership by a minority group. And the minority groups mentioned in 1976 were Negroes, Spanish-speaking, Orientals, Indian, Eskimos, and Aleuts. So in 2016, language modernization legislation actually blew the hinges off of this lineage-specific discriminatory redress of discriminatory actions legislation, and it changed wording to include practically any new arrival who arrives to the United States. It changed Negro to African American, and you've already heard the language about who is an African American nowadays, even though we know that the same people, American Negroes, the founding Black population, are African American, Asian American, which means everybody, Pacific Islanders, Hispanic, Native American, and the like. The United States owes no such special dispensations to the entirety of the world. That 1976 legislation can indeed, in companionship with the 2023 SCOTUS ruling, be used to once again serve those populations who've been underserved and displaced by outsourcing and the like. One other legal precedent is the 1970 National Environmental Policy Act and the Environmental Justice Executive Orders by Bill Clinton and Joseph Biden. Those acts.
Environmental stuff is just a tax. It's to redistribute the wealth back to them.
The NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, is designed to ensure that the federal government submits major proposed federal actions to an analysis of negative impacts and that on the human environment, and not just trees and rocks and all the things, but the economics.
Yeah, within the next 2 weeks. It might be before that.
And the politics and the like.
I wonder how that's going
to
go.
And to mitigate those negative impacts, as well as collecting impact statements from affected communities.
I
so
know
what Steve shared very personally here.
A lot of the leaders, not all the leaders from Europe came. A lot of them still want to keep money laundering through this whole war thing. They definitely do, and Trump's trying to end it.
The government would seek to solicit those types of perspectives and ideally do something to minimize a repetition of that behavior. I'm not exactly sure how much time I have left, Kevin, so I'll just keep going.
Probably, so about another.
Colin, do you guys have something like ICE over there in England? Do you have an agency like ICE?
Minute.
Perfect. That's what
Dr. Long.
Okay.
Thank you.
And finally, we must address common self-management and mental health related concerns that Americans have that might keep them out of the labor force, as well as make them struggle to maintain stable employment. Specifically, what I'm talking about here is what you often hear about: adverse childhood experiences, trauma, and adversity. You might ask yourself, what does that have to do with labor sourcing? But what the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention identified in the late 90s is that there are many ways that adversity from birth to 17 actually affect life performance. And here are two ways that adversity affects worker performance. those adults who have an adverse childhood experiences score of 4 or more are more likely to be absent greater than 2 days
Mm.
per month. They are also much more likely, 20% more likely, to actually have serious problems performing their job, including accepting feedback, showing up to work on time, showing up to work and not smelling like a substance that they may abuse or use to self-medicate. So I hope you leave this session with me
Self-medicate, huh?
understanding that elected officials
Got a bunch of
can and
druggies.
already have legal precedents on the books to help them develop a labor sourcing plan that puts Americans first. And that last, but certainly not least, I'm calling each of us to remember that what gets measured gets done, what gets planned gets implemented, and to prioritize a native born labor sourcing plan and internal talent management strategy. Elected officials and American citizens must reconcile the need for some level of central planning, impacts assessments, and timely course corrections. Otherwise, we get what we get, and how's that working out for us? Thank you.
Wow, it's not working out very well for us, Dr. Long.
Yep. All right, I'm going to go on to the betrayal of what they're doing to the soldiers at the VA. Let me get this opened up. It's probably going to be us ahead in the first. So. Okay.
When our men and women sign up to serve in the military, knowing that death or injury is a possibility.
Sorry about it freezing. Normally don't do that much. See if I can.
On active duty, that the Veterans Administration, established and funded by Congress, will be there for them. It is a sacred trust. In the film Article 99, so named for an action in the military, such as cowardice or desertion, the late actor Ray Liotta starred as a VA doctor who sees corruption, negligence, and mismanagement.
There's a lot of money missing from that
and tries
program.
to do something about it. He
Not
finds
as bad
it
as it
is
used
an
to be, but
uphill battle.
it
Art
was
often
really
imitates
bad at one
reality.
time.
However, the long history of the VA is anything but a positive report on one of the most critical government agencies funded by taxpayers. While recent major positive changes were initiated by President Donald Trump in his first term, there is still much to do. Here's why. When was the VA created? What were the problems early on? Why was more not done to fix these issues? How did it escalate, and why? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Following World War I, on August 9, 1921, President Warren G. Harding signed an act of Congress consolidating the War Risk Bureau and other several agencies into the new Veterans Bureau. The Bureau was created to aid the thousands of World War I veterans in need of medical and employment services. Each of the Bureau's 14 nationwide offices had the authority to act without awaiting approval from the main office.
Colin, they need them there for voters. That's why they're going to keep them. They're the replacements. Totally, the Labor Party there wants them there because they vote for them. They'll give them free money just to keep them voting. They want them dependent.
Scottish-born U.S. Marine Corps and Army veteran Major Charles Robert Forbes was confirmed by the Senate as the first director. However, due to a lack of centralized management and oversight, Forbes took bribes and looted millions from veterans' programs through fraudulent hospital contracts and kickbacks.
See what I mean about it was just a money laundering even back then.
He was convicted in 1926 and sent to federal prison. Following this fallout, the Veterans Administration was created in 1930 by combining three agencies: the Veterans Bureau, Bureau of Pensions, and the National Home for Disabled Volunteer Soldiers. This was to be managed by the headquarters in Washington, D.C. But things did not get any better over the next century. The VA didn't just have a quality problem, it had a criminal problem. Extortionists, sexual predators, pill pushers, and negligent doctors, and even professional killers have used the system as a shield. Veterans paid for it with their lives, their health, and their dignity. In 1989, the VA was elevated to cabinet-level status as the Department of Veterans Affairs. Due to the long list of issues regarding criminal physicians working in the VA, here are just some of the greatest hits. Just last year in 2024, lawmakers heard testimony from the Deputy Assistant Inspector General, Dr. Jennifer Baptiste, regarding the serious problems that surfaced at the Hampton, Virginia VA Medical Center. The House Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations held a hearing entitled, "What Has Happened to Hampton?" The panel's chair, Representative Jen Kiggins, Republican of Virginia's 2nd District, said she and her staff spoke to 25 VA whistleblowers. Quoting her, "Through this work, I repeatedly heard reports of patient safety concerns, ineffective facility leadership, internal employee disputes, and dirty surgical operating rooms. But the problems within the VA system go back decades, and most veterans had no idea how dangerous the VA environment was when they entered into the system. During the 1990s through 2000s, Dr. Michael Swango found a secure job at the VA. Before he was hired, he was already a suspected serial killer, although no charges were brought. And due to the difficulty in recruiting doctors who make a far better income in private practice, shortcuts were taken. In August 1985, he was convicted in the non-fatal poisonings of patients in Illinois and served 2 years of a 5-year sentence. In March 1992, he secured residency in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, using forged documents. Starting in 1993, several healthy patients died and Swango's past surfaced, and he was fired. Again, using forgeries, Swango was hired as a psychiatry resident at State University of New York at Stony Brook, assigned to a Veterans Administration hospital without a serious background check, although rumors abounded. If the VA had done its due diligence, they would have known about his criminal record and revocation of his medical license. Luckily, the FBI intervened before he could start killing VA patients there. Swango later pled guilty to killing up to 60 patients. In 2012, Dr. Robert Morris Levy, a pathologist, was sentenced for manslaughter in the Veterans Healthcare System of the Ozarks, Arkansas deaths because he falsified test results, misdiagnosed cancers, and was intoxicated on duty over 1,000 times, but did not lose his job despite being linked to at least 15 veteran deaths.
Who's he related to?
The VA was well aware of his actions, but ignored red flags and failed to remove him for years. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Dr. Mahir Huttam was a minimally invasive laparoscopic and robotic surgeon for the VA from 2012 until he was terminated in 2013 for blowing the whistle on medical mistakes, improper healthcare methods, procedural shortcuts, and he became one of the public whistleblowers during the National VA Patient Care Scandal, which resulted in new leadership and policy changes aimed at better serving veterans under President Donald Trump in 2017. After Huttam came forward a decade ago, he is still waiting for the agency to fully pay him in his employment discrimination case, even after a federal judge ruled in his favor. The government targets their own.
Under Trump working for you.
The best examples of corruption and cover-up were the VA employees in Phoenix, Arizona, who created fake wait lists to make it appear as if veterans were receiving timely care. In fact, it was proven that failure to actually book appointments and treat veterans already registered resulted in the documented deaths of over 40 veterans.
I will.
These American patriots died waiting for appointments that never happened, although they were lied to and told to stand by for a future appointment, while VA employees got performance bonuses based upon falsified data. CNN and whistleblowers blew the lid off the story, and a congressional inquiry was launched. But no major reforms were enacted, although Congress finally passed the Veterans Access, Choice, and Accountability Act of 2014. Billions of dollars were wasted. Money was diverted, bonuses paid, basically stolen, while supposedly being sent to fix the problems under the Obama administration.
All they
It was a
always want to
failure.
do is spend more money so they can line their
VA
pockets
Secretary
even more.
Eric Shinseki
Them and their
resigned in
relatives.
disgrace, and there was no major reform until the first Trump administration, but it takes time to repair a broken and corrupt system. Over 100 veterans have died by their own hand on VA property, many in parking lots, as a final act of protest. In 2014, Paula Padin, then a public information officer for the Phoenix VA, joined Dr. Sam Foote, who worked at the VA for 24 years, to blow the whistle on fraudulent patient waiting lists to make it appear that vets were being seen within the required time frame. The Phoenix VA Health System Director Sharon Hellman and 2 other
So
officials
they'd
were
write
placed
down
on
that they had
administrative leave.
appointments and bill them,
That was
even
as
though they
far as it went.
didn't end up getting their
The
appointments.
scandal led to the resignation of several VA officials, including the department's cabinet secretary, the aforementioned Eric Shinseki. The DOJ declined to press charges on most involved, as Shinseki squashed criminal whistleblower complaints, refused to send legitimate cases to the Department of Justice, and expanded the cover-up operations. Padin's book, A Sacred Duty,
That's our
How a
government.
Whistleblower Took on the VA and Won, and Dr. Sam Foote helped expose the Phoenix VA scandal. The official patient list, which was sent up the chain of command to Washington, showed veterans receiving health care within the prescribed times. It was a lie. The unofficial
like a lot
but
of their
accurate list
paperwork's a
showed
lie.
the actual wait times. In some cases, veterans were waiting more than a year for care and dying. Padin had immediate and ruthless retaliation, and she was charged by the federal government for disclosing confidential records and
Did they ever
had to
get
hire
anyone
a
with
criminal
morals?
defense attorney. At the Toma VA Medical Center in Wisconsin, Dr. David Houlihan, known as the Candyman, prescribed lethal levels of opioids and benzodiazepines to veterans, often
Keep them high
against
so they
protocol.
won't talk.
At
least one veteran, Jason Simkakowski, died from mixed drug toxicity. Following a congressional investigation, Houlihan was fired in 2014 but never criminally charged. He was protected by the system. Simkakowski's family won a settlement. In 2015, the VA Inspector General report found that 307 veterans died waiting for care, medical malpractice, and incompetence, or were just lost in the system. It also uncovered scheduling manipulation persisted across multiple VA hospitals similar to the Phoenix operation.
So this
Reports
been,
from the Office of Special
England?
Counsel found
Colin?
routine retaliation against
I bet
VA
you it's pretty
employees
much the same
who
thing.
reported fraud or malpractice was standard policy, but problems persisted. In 2017, David Shulkin, the newly installed Trump-era VA secretary, was discovered to have used VA funds for a European vacation with his wife disguised as official travel. At least he was fired in 2018 by President Trump. In
It didn't last too long
2019,
'cause
Dr.
Trump came
Edgar
in at
Lopez was
17.
convicted for operating a disability fraud ring in the Puerto Rico VA. Lopez created fake medical records to help fake patients file false disability claims. He took bribes in exchange for approving fraudulent paperwork and was convicted, but the problem lasted for some time and the VA simply ignored it. In 2022, it came to light that Dr. Michael T. Sisko had sexually assaulted patients during routine exams
they'd
in
have
the
a lot more
Kansas City VA
whistleblowers.
Medical Center. His superiors were informed by the patients and even concerned staff, but they delayed his termination and failed to alert law enforcement promptly. He was finally arrested, lost his medical license, and multiple lawsuits followed. In 2023, at the Durham VA in North Carolina, Dr. Ernestine Briggs King, who practiced sexual assault and harassment, despite multiple official complaints of sexual misconduct against male and female staff, was still promoted. To silence the scandal, she was quietly removed after internal investigations went public. No charges were ever filed despite substantial sworn testimony and corroborating evidence. In 2024, Tara Saravino of West Haven, Connecticut, was sentenced to 2 years of probation for diverting narcotics from veterans under her
Now, the
care
VA was one
while
of the
she
ones that
worked
was
as a
pushing the
nurse at the
jab,
West Haven VA Medical Center's intensive
clot
care
shot.
unit. Between January to July 2023, Saravino ingested fentanyl, hydromorphone, and oxycodone intended for patients in her care. In one instance, she repeatedly introduced fentanyl into the system of a brain-dead patient after claiming she observed him in pain and having a seizure. Over a 9-day period, Saravino administered fentanyl to the patient approximately 19 times so that she could divert some for herself. This case
She's
was
stealing the
investigated by
fentanyl.
the VA OIG DEA
Jeez.
New Haven's Tactical Diversion Squad and the West Haven Police Department. Also in 2024, Rajesh Modabai Patel, a primary care physician at the VA Medical Center in Decatur, Georgia, was found guilty of violating a patient's constitutional right to bodily integrity while acting under color of law and for engaging in unwanted sexual contact.
Hmm.
Patel was charged with sexually
Not
assaulting 4 of
surprised.
his female patients during routine exams between 2019 and 2020. The jury acquitted him of charges related to 3 victims and found him guilty of violating the 4th victim. Dr. Ahmed Hassan, 71, of Collegeville, Pennsylvania, was charged by indictment in April 2021. After a 1-week trial in October 2024, a federal grand jury convicted the defendant of 22 counts of wire fraud for misusing his VA position to steal from the agency. Rumors had abounded as to his actions,
The
but
government's
no
all
action
crooks.
was taken. In 2025, Hassan was sentenced by United States District Judge John F. Murphy to 64 months imprisonment and 3 years of supervised release for theft of the Department of Veterans Affairs funds exceeding $500,000. Hassan was also ordered to pay $565,058.70 in restitution, with $150,000 of that restitution due in 30 days and a $2,200 special assessment. Christiana Ogmanaya, a registered nurse at the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston, Texas, was indicted on May 7, 2025 for creating false government records. She claimed to have checked on a patient multiple times between July 26 and 27, 2024, despite having no contact. That patient was later found dead, which was ruled a self-termination. Prosecutors alleged that she
Suicide?
logged
Doesn't
visits that
surprise
never
me.
happened. She is still pending trial, and if convicted, she faces up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Media and advocacy groups documented ongoing mistreatment, delays, and negligent care at Houston's VA facilities, including disturbing stories like veterans left uncleaned, dehydration, wrongful feeding tube placement, and nearly fatal errors in post-surgical care. These are not necessarily criminal charges, but
I know
raise
that
serious
a lot
concerns.
of patients don't want to go to the VA.
One
They
common
want to go to
thread
the
in the
regular
VA
doctor.
system is lack of oversight and accountability. A
They
major
get the bottom
problem
of the
has been
barrel
drug
working there.
overprescription, especially the massive abuse of opioids and psychiatric medications without peer review or oversight. Hundreds of reports have been filed for sexual misconduct, doctors assaulting and even killing vulnerable patients, fraud, substance abuse by staff, disability scams, impairment on the job, fatal misdiagnoses, falsified billing, gross negligence, and incompetence. These were facts which, when reported, were often ignored or buried by VA human resources, and while whistleblowers were punished, they were also silenced and fired. All the while, the veterans suffered. VA employees in Arkansas and Texas were charged with creating fake medical records to approve fraudulent claims in exchange for kickbacks, but only after a whistleblower came forward. But why does this even happen? How do these people remain employed, causing harm? Well, the answer is simple, and is being addressed once again by the second Trump administration. Federal government civil service protections make it nearly impossible to fire even dangerous doctors. In fact, the VA mastered the well-known art of musical staff management. In most cases, the VA buried complaints or reassigned doctors instead of
It's
firing
sort of
them.
like the
Some
China
doctors are
virus
shielded by
shots. They
powerful
buried all
federal
that
unions.
information. People dying
Basically,
from
they
the
just
shot.
relocated the problem to another
Blaming
location
them,
without even admitting
China
there was a
virus
problem in
itself.
the first place. Image was more important than helping veterans. The VA has always handled their criminal complaints and other investigations internally. This is basically the same situation as if the Gestapo in Nazi Germany were to handle the investigation into complaints by inmates regarding SS treatment in the death camps. The VA self-investigation policies were a joke. Due to the culture of retaliation, Whistleblowers are punished, fired, and often smeared, while bad doctors are protected. These facts are what prompted President Trump to create the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act of 2017. This was intended to speed up terminations of criminal employees and incompetent employees, which happened until 2020. But after the election of Joseph Biden, and see our 4 videos on him, it was not implemented. One major problem is that the Credentialing Office Modernization section is still incomplete in many VA regions. Likewise, external audits and reviews of complaints are mostly ignored or watered down
Hi, Tammy.
long before they reach Congress. Until there is true external criminal oversight, transparent reporting, and zero tolerance for misconduct, the VA will remain a haven for some of the worst doctors in America. Since then, it's been plagued by recurring scandals involving fraud, incompetence, whistleblower retaliation, and preventable deaths. For example, during the 1980s and 90s, the VA consistently dismissed, delayed, or denied the health effects of Agent Orange exposure in Vietnam vets and later Gulf War syndrome. The real reason was that they did not want to spend the money to address these medical issues, but that did not stop them from paying their administrators massive annual bonuses, often based upon false filings to the federal government. The result was delayed compensation for tens of thousands of veterans, which eventually resulted in congressional hearings that initially forced partial action. Eventually, these conditions were added to the VA's list of compensated disabilities.
And a bunch of
Examples
people
of
to go in there to
surgical
clean,
malpractice in
not just the
VA
top person,
facilities
some
abounded.
people just
In
underneath
2019,
them,
for example,
and just
VA
underneath
Medical
them,
Center in Manchester,
also to go
New
in and
Hampshire, was
clean
sued after
house.
veterans contracted infections from non-sterile instruments. What was the VA's response? Delay, deny, defend. Supervisors trained
Okay,
employees on how to game the system.
Well, I got a couple of more good
Bonuses
ones
and
coming up.
promotions were tied
Especially
to
the last
success
one. I'm going to save
metrics.
the best for
In many
for
cases,
last. About
VA executives
Barr.
denied wrongdoing or claimed ignorance and buried serious problems and investigations. Starting in 2020, the VA mismanaged COVID-19 protocols, exposing veterans and staff to the virus, and there were multiple outbreaks at VA-run nursing homes. Whistleblowers released
Bill
internal
Barr had a
memos that
plot
revealed the
against
lack
Trump.
of PPE, which had been
And
paid
this will
for,
be the details
but the money
on the last
was
one I
used
played.
elsewhere and unaccounted
second to
for,
last.
and high-level cover-ups were exposed. Now, under the Trump administration, who urged reforms starting in 2021 and lasting until 2024, the disability claims backlog and burn pit failures had a backlog swell to 900,000 plus unresolved claims. Naturally, the VA was slow to acknowledge the effects of burn pit exposure. Only after the PACT Act of 2022 was passed
I wonder
did
how
the
many
VA
people died
begin to
while waiting
seriously
for
respond.
treatment.
The legacy of
for
failure is
their
pretty
cases.
simple to explain. Bureaucracy, layers of red tape, and performance bonuses encourage falsifying records. Firing bad employees takes years due to union protections and HR loopholes. Outdated technology and antiquated systems, such as paper files and legacy software, undermine efficiency. The VA has fostered a culture of fear where whistleblowers had no protection and were punished more often than wrongdoers. One remedy was Veterans Choice and Mission Acts that shifted some care to private outsiders who are compensated by the VA, thanks to Donald Trump. These were the result of many whistleblowers, most notably Brandon Coleman, who was a PTSD counselor who was retaliated against after warning about suicidal patients being ignored, and Joe Colon, who exposed fraudulent overtime payments in Puerto Rico.
Hi, John.
As of 2025, the VA still has persistent wait times and mismanagement in many locations, and it remains one of the least trusted federal agencies by its own clients. But let me break it down and state specifically, this is not endemic of every Veterans Administration hospital.
And usually
Many
the left's
are
answer
very
to it is throw
efficient
more
and work
money at it, so
extremely
they
well.
launder more money.
But are there solutions? Yes. When Donald Trump ran in 2016 with a hardline message, the VA is broken and we will fix it, he did so. During his first presidency from 2017 to 2021, the Trump administration implemented some of the most significant structural changes to the Department of Veterans Affairs in decades. Here's a no BS breakdown of how Trump changed the VA through the VA Mission Act in 2018, what improved, what flopped, and what it all actually meant for veterans. It replaced the failed 2014 Choice program with a new system allowing veterans more access to private sector doctors if the VA couldn't schedule an appointment within 20 days or if the veteran lived more than 30 minutes from a VA facility. This streamlined healthcare under one program, which gave 9 million veterans greater flexibility in where to get care. In fact, full disclosure, my son Max, an Afghanistan veteran, was one of many veterans who benefited from these reforms. In addition, the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act of 2017 gave the VA Secretary power
just a little bit
to
before
fire
5
underperforming
Eastern
or corrupt
time,
employees faster. Creating the
'cause I knew
Office
I
of
had just over 2
Accountability and
hours worth
Whistleblower
of video
Protection was a good
altogether.
move. It protected whistleblowers from
I tried to
retaliation
be
and
off
allowed
right
for more than
just before
8,000 VA
7
employees
p.m.
to be removed or disciplined by
Eastern
2020.
because of the
But
other
some
shows,
critics
you know,
pointed out that
Rebel
most
Chicks and
firings
stuff.
were low-level staff, not senior officials, and reports are that some retaliation still happens to
No, I didn't
whistleblowers.
hear. What
Additionally,
happened to DeSantis?
the Electronic Health Record Modernization ordered the VA to adopt Cerner EHR system,
Oh, what he said
aligning
this
with the
morning.
DoD system for seamless
I
records,
haven't heard.
creating a single lifetime record
And
for
I've been a
every
little bit
service
on.
member and
I
veteran.
worked for a while today.
This was launched at select VA centers
If
in
anyone knows what he
2020 to
said,
reduce duplicate
put in
records
chat.
and improve care. Trump started it, but the Biden administration derailed all the positive results when VA healthcare providers were diverted to the U.S. southern border to provide illegal immigrants with free health care at the
they
expense
got
of veterans.
the real free
Trump had
healthcare.
expanded VA.gov
Of course, they
appointment
didn't have to wear
booking,
masks or
wait
take
time
the jab.
tracking, customer
That's for us
satisfaction
to die
surveys,
with.
and public dashboards showing performance metrics for VA hospitals. Veteran trust in the VA following Trump's changes rose to 91% by 2020, according to internal surveys. Before that, it hovered around 30 or 40%. This was the first time that wait times at VA outperformed the private sector in some areas.
Hi, Gregory.
The days of the VA whistleblower retaliation program's mantra of protecting the institution, not the vets, was coming to a close. But how do we finally repair the VA permanently? Well, I, your humble narrator, have some ideas. First, place every member of Congress, House and Senate, inside the VA healthcare system. Once they experience the problems, see how fast it gets repaired. Eliminate federal employee unions, which protect violators. If the military can't have a union, why should they? Make sure the VA gets more funding than foreign governments, or eliminate foreign spending entirely and keep our tax money here to treat veterans. This would allow the VA to pay higher salaries and attract better talent. Eliminate the bonus incentive program, which creates the environment for fraud. Have the Congressional Budget Office hold annual audits of the VA nationwide, accounting for the money. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem is solvable. It just takes the proper attitude and the proper motivation to treat our veterans with respect and dignity.
Florida, huh?
They earned it.
A new record, huh?
Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's really bad. Really bad. It's got to be addressed now. I'd say pull any
Please
of the
check
free,
out our merchandise store.
pull any of the free licenses they were handing that Biden was handing out, you know. So, all right, the next one's going to be on the 13th Amendment and Lincoln. How he fought to end slavery. I'm trying to enlarge this, I guess.
The 13th Amendment.
There we go.
How Lincoln fought to end slavery forever. Neither slavery nor involuntary service.
Yeah, the whole them driving has really gotten bad. They're killing people like crazy. So they were just handing out licenses to people with no driver's test, nothing, not even a written test. They don't know any English.
Except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted,
unions
shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 1 of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. These 37 words changed America forever. Getting them into the Constitution was one of Abraham Lincoln's hardest political battles. On January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing slaves in rebellious southern states. It was a celebration.
Playing this one because it's going to lead up to the next one. I'm going to show about the welfare state and how it was all started in '67 and all that to get the blacks voting for the left.
Great event, but Lincoln knew it wasn't enough. The Emancipation Proclamation had serious problems. First, it only freed slaves in states that were fighting against the Union. Slavery remained legal in loyal border states like Kentucky, Missouri, Maryland, and Delaware. The proclamation didn't apply everywhere in Confederate territory. It did not affect slavery in the following Union-controlled areas: Tennessee, the 68 Virginia counties that would become West Virginia, and parts of Louisiana. Second, Lincoln had signed it as a war measure using his Article II constitutional powers as commander-in-chief. This meant that when the war ended, courts might say the proclamation was no longer valid. People freed by the proclamation might be forced back into slavery. Lincoln had used the threat of freeing slaves as incentive for Confederate states to return to the Union. In September 1862, he issued an executive order that would free slaves on January 1st, 1863, in any rebellious state that had not returned. No state took the offer, and the proclamation went into effect, but only in the 10 states still in rebellion. Lincoln understood that ending slavery permanently required change to the Constitution. Only a constitutional amendment would make abolition the law of the land forever. Lincoln's push for the 13th Amendment wasn't the first time American leaders had tried to limit slavery through federal law. Nearly 80 years earlier, the young nation had established an important precedent with the Northwest Ordinance. In 1784, Thomas Jefferson drafted the first ordinance to set up principles.
In Sleepy Joe's administration, they were covering up all the records on that, too. They were lying about the records on how many of them were having accidents and killing people.
For governing territories and admission of new states. Jefferson included a provision that would have banned slavery in all new territories. This anti-slavery clause failed by one vote in Congress. In 1787, Congress passed the Northwest Ordinance, which
John, I tried to get into the military back in about 74, 75, but I'm deaf in my right ear. I'm totally deaf in my right ear, and they wouldn't take me.
Governed the territory that would become Ohio.
Tried to get in the Army, the Marines. So three branches. I didn't go for the Air Force. I don't care that much for heights.
Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and parts of Minnesota. Article 6 of this ordinance stated, "There shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the said territory, otherwise than in the punishment of crimes, whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted."
They said if I ever lost hearing in the other ear, I'd be totally deaf then, you know.
The Northwest Ordinance had the practical effect of establishing the Ohio River as the geographic divide between slave states and free states, from the Appalachian Mountains to the Mississippi River. Lincoln and other Republican leaders knew the federal government had banned slavery in territories, but to do so in the states required a constitutional amendment. The Northwest Ordinance prohibition of slavery and involuntary servitude was adapted to become the 13th Amendment in 1865. To amend the Constitution, Lincoln needed a 2/3 vote in both the House and Senate. Then 3/4 of all states had to approve it. The prospects were dim. The Senate approved the proposed 13th Amendment in April 1864. However, when the House voted on June 15, 1864, the amendment failed. This was a major setback.
My brother Jeff went into the Marines.
A crucial Lincoln ally was Pennsylvania Representative Thaddeus Stevens. Stevens was known for his fiery speeches against slavery and mastery of congressional tactics. When the June 1864 vote failed, Stevens advised Lincoln to try again after the presidential election. Lincoln's big victory in the 1864 presidential election changed the political situation. He defeated Democrat George McClellan, who had promised to negotiate a peace without the abolition of slavery. Lincoln's win showed that voters supported turning the war into a fight for freedom. Lincoln's party platform had endorsed abolition by constitutional amendment, giving him a mandate. Lincoln understood practical politics. As he lobbied House members for yes votes on the amendment, he did not confine his arguments to the immorality of slavery. He tailored his argument for his audience. To some border state Republicans, he said ending slavery would stop the South from using slave labor to rebuild their army after the war. To Democrats who wanted the war over, he argued that permanent abolition would discourage Confederate soldiers and encourage surrender. Lincoln employed presidential power to reward supporters and pressure opponents. He offered government jobs, military contracts, and political appointments to congressmen who would vote his way. Timing was crucial. The Senate's April 1864 approval remained valid, but only if the House approved before new members were sworn in on March 4, 1865. If not approved by then, the entire process would have to start over. As the critical vote approached in January 1865, Lincoln turned the White House into a lobbying headquarters. To New York Democrat Moses Odell, he promised federal appointments in New York. To Missouri Congressman James Rollins, he explained the end of slavery would help border state economies by eliminating competition from slave labor. Everyone in Lincoln's administration helped. Secretary of State William Seward negotiated with congressmen from his sickbed after a carriage accident.
So they're still
Mary
driving,
Lincoln
huh?
hosted parties
Gregory,
designed to influence
the
congressional
illegals are
lives.
still driving, huh?
Lincoln and his team used every executive power at their disposal to
I
obtain
missed your
votes.
live the other day.
Lincoln later
I didn't know you
called
were
this
gonna be alive.
the most important work of my administration.
I
Some
know
historians
you
suggest
talked
that
about
direct bribery of House members may have taken place. On January 31st, 1865, the House chamber was packed. Speaker Schuyler Colfax called for the final vote. The atmosphere was tense and the outcome uncertain. When the clerk announced the result, 119 votes for the amendment, 56 against, the chamber exploded in celebration. Republican congressmen cried openly while people in the galleries cheered. When Lincoln got word at the White House, he simply said, "It is done." Privately, he told his secretary that this moment fulfilled his deepest beliefs about human equality and what the Constitution really meant. Congressman Thaddeus Stevens later reflected on the victory, reportedly saying, "The greatest measure of the 19th century was passed by corruption, aided and abetted by the purest man in America." An accurate telling of the 13th Amendment story is the 2012 movie Lincoln. Actor Daniel Day-Lewis was nominated for an Academy Award for his portrayal of the 16th president.
I think
Tommy
it's
Lee
going to
Jones
take
portrayed
at least a decade to get it down to normal, because he was flying in any way possible to get him in here.
Stevens. Passing Congress was only half
the
the battle. Pursuant to the Constitution's Article 5, the amendment still needed approval from 3/4 of the states. Lincoln, assassinated on April 15, 1865, would not live to see the amendment ratified. On December 6, 1865, Georgia became the 27th state of the then 36 states to ratify.
I'm surprised Georgia was one of the ones that would ratify it, because they were one of the ones fighting strongly against it.
The 13th Amendment. Secretary Seward certified on December 18, 1865, that the 13th Amendment had become part of the Constitution 8 months after Lincoln's death. This was not only the end of slavery. It was a fundamental change in how the federal government could use power to protect human rights and regulate the conduct of the states. The amendment's second section gave Congress power to enforce the new law through appropriate legislation. Congress used its enforcement power to define involuntary servitude.
Now, Gregory, I think there's Trump passed something about truck stops, or when they do the inspections, when they pull the trucks over and inspect them and all this and that, they're going to be going after illegals that way. So you might have a few cases where the illegals are driving these trucks and they're going to take off and try to avoid them.
Broadly, with congressional definitions beyond traditional slavery to include obtaining labor through threatening or using physical force, using legal coercion, physical restraint or threats, blackmail, causing or threatening financial harm. Lincoln's role was crucial. His moral leadership and political skill built coalitions across party lines. He created a model for how to achieve major change in the American Republic. Lincoln's push for a constitutional amendment had been prescient. After Lincoln's death, President Andrew Johnson tried to reverse many of Lincoln's policies. Southern states passed black codes trying to recreate slavery under a different name. The 13th Amendment provided the legal foundation to oppose these efforts. The The 13th Amendment was a significant step in legally erasing the largest contradiction between the promise of America's founding and the reality of slavery. The 13th Amendment completed what Jefferson had started in 1784. The language that Jefferson and others had used to ban slavery in the Northwest Territory became the law for the entire United States in 1865. As Massachusetts Senator Charles Sumner observed, the amendment was nothing less than the fulfillment of a promise first expressed at the founding. Those 37 words represented the end of decades of struggle and the beginning of a new chapter in the American experiment. Please like and share this video and subscribe to Constitutional Soundbites and join the effort to combat constitutional illiteracy.
Let me get back to my channel here. I'm over on YouTube, Utah Gun Exchange. I'm going to do the documentary on the welfare thing, why they did it, and replacing the fathers is basically what they were trying to do. They're trying to take the fathers out of the home.
A large retail store.
Sorry about these ads. Okay.
Gonna save my dough.
This is how welfare started and why they did it.
I ain't gonna come back.
Ruin the families. They're doing it in the white community now.
Welfare mothers and the children too feel that they are on a dead-end street. That the way things are, there's not enough money and no way to hold up your head. And so they've begun what amounts to a welfare revolt.
You look on TV and you see that poor little kid.
Now, Gregory, if you get the license plates, does that help? Like, take a picture of the license plates of these illegals? You know, do they even have insurance?
Kid from another nation. Oh, he looks so pitiful. I feel so sorry for him. But I can't overlook the fact that we have poor little kids in this nation.
Mrs. Etta Horn is a leader of the welfare rights movement. Their principle and their overwhelming complaint is that there simply is not enough money to raise a family, and then that it's given in a self-defeating and
when they tax so much, they cause inflation, and that's what hurts the poor.
Perpetuating way
Cost of living.
that it degrades the people who receive it.
I have children. I look at my kids' face, and I think, am I going to really prove to them where it starts at?
John, how'd they get the license in the first place?
You know, they're always screaming about
they're just handing them out like
delinquents.
candy.
American Welfare Department makes delinquents.
CDLs.
There is an evil system around.
Martin Luther King believes that welfare is part of that system, damaging to black and white alike.
Will not get right
until
this evil system is removed, because as I have listened and as I've looked and as I've lived in the ghetto, I've seen what this evil system has done to my brothers and my sisters. I've seen how it has left little children with clouds of inferiority formed in their little mental sky. I've seen how this evil system has transformed nice, decent young women into prostitutes.
Get ahead in life.
I've seen how this system has transformed nice, decent young men into dope addicts trying to escape the ugliness of their daily life.
You never get rich on welfare unless you cheat on it. It's designed to keep you poor. I've seen some of them, Gregory.
Maria Ortiz and her children, Hilda, Juanita, Antonio, Pedro,
I didn't see the one without the
in their New York apartment.
If they're even legal plates, you know, some of them aren't even right. Like old plates that don't even aren't legal ones anymore.
Mrs. Ortiz gets her welfare check under the Aid for Dependent Children program. It comes to about $117 every 2 weeks.
Gregory, when they have an accident and if they don't have insurance, who pays for that? You know, they don't have insurance, these truck drivers that are illegal.
About $3,000 a year. Not enough to pay the rent,
now remember, this
feed and
67.
clothe the kids,
67,
and provide the diet that
$3,000
the
went
doctor has
further
told
than it
Mrs.
does
Ortiz
now
she
by far,
needs.
but still poor, crazy poor. You probably need at least 6.
Another child is on the way, but the father of her children has deserted her. The fact that governs everything else in Mrs. Ortiz's life is money, or the lack of it. Her inability to give her children the things they need.
They've taken the fathers out of the homes.
But Mrs. Ortiz is comparatively fortunate. She lives in New York, which has one of the highest welfare standards in the country. Some places
also more expensive to live here because of the money they hand out free. It makes everything cost a lot more.
Mississippi and some other southern states in particular keep welfare recipients at the edge of starvation. 30 cents a day for each child in some areas, 50 cents a day in others. In those last days before the welfare check arrives, the children subsist on what their mother bought 2 weeks previously.
The other thing, Gregory, I've heard that they steal from the trucks and like parts off the truck and all that kind of stuff. I've heard of that happening.
Mainly cereal, sometimes potatoes. Mrs. Ortiz, with 4 children and a 5th on the way, is probably beyond the point of marriage. The men she meets rarely earn more than $80 a week. If she marries, her welfare check would most likely be cut off. The men cannot support her, and therefore they cannot marry her.
It's a trap.
At age 20, she may already be permanently consigned to the welfare rolls.
Shouldn't be having kids out of wedlock. Back when like the Italians and the Irish and all that came to America, they kind of lived in the ghettos, but they worked their way out of these things, sometimes working 2 jobs and stuff like that. And then their kids did better than them and so on. They worked their way out of the ghettos. The welfare traps you in there because you can't work while you're on
The problems of the Ortizes are similar to those of welfare families in other cities. Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, Detroit.
I have never received my check on time. Now, they say they put them out, but now, like yesterday, you're supposed to have been here yesterday, and it didn't arrive, and I'm waiting today for it. Now, 2 weeks ago, it was supposed to have been on a Friday, so it didn't arrive. So I waited Saturday until the mailman went by, still no check, so I called down there for emergency order, like they told me to.
Yeah, it's
there
expensive.
There is no such
thing
as emergency order on a weekend. So in other words, my children went without food from Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, until Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Mrs. Jane Wilson is a Detroit welfare mother. The premise of the ADC program is simple, that children without visible means of support must be aided by the state. But to be eligible, a mother and her children must be without a man in the house.
Well, my husband left me in September, and then I went down to the emergency shelter, welfare shelter, and then I had...
Yeah, Gregory, back when my brother was an independent driver, he'd have to constantly watch it. If they'd slow down at lights and this and that, they'd come out and try to open up the back of his truck and get stuff out of it. He tried to, like, double padlock it and everything, and they had stuff to cut that stuff.
I had to go through the welfare, fill out all these papers, drag all 5 kids on the bus, go down there, sit there and wait for 3-4 hours until they come around to you. I felt like the lowest.
He was trying to think of a way of making it so that it would shock them if they were touching the back of the truck before he was ready to unload.
Thing on earth when I went to the welfare.
Especially
I felt
in New York
like
City.
They were all better than me, that they could walk all over me, which I got down on my hands and knees to them and begged them for coats and boots for these children at wintertime. I actually got down on my hands and knees, and you can ask anybody down at that office. I actually got down on my hands and knees and begged them. And you know what? And when I went down there, sure, they gave me the coats and boots. Sure, after you get down on your hands and knees and you beg. That's the only way you're going to get anything from the welfare. And to this day, I have never gotten anything from the welfare.
Illegals get it all free. They get free hotels, too.
Breakfast in the home of Carol King, a Cleveland welfare mother with 9 children. On the days before the welfare check arrives, there is half an orange for each child. Mrs. King has become involved in the welfare rights movement because she feels she
Have you ever gotten any of them arrested, Gregory, for trying to break into your truck?
Doesn't get enough money to raise her family. She gets less than 80 cents a day for each of her children. The Ohio legislature approves only 3/4 of the amount that the state welfare department felt was a minimum necessity in 1959.
Ransacking
The rise of ADC recipients in the last 6 years has been particularly dramatic among Negro families in the northern ghettos. Giving aid only when the husband is absent pushes the man out of the house. His presence is an economic hardship, and a whole class of women and children are growing up in the northern ghettos knowing neither husband nor father, only dependence on welfare.
Mainly.
Life on welfare means waiting in line for food stamps, as for everything else. After getting her welfare check each month, Mrs. King's first stop is a food stamp center in the heart of Huff, Cleveland's Negro ghetto.
You never get out of poverty once you're a slave to it.
She pays $110 for $158 worth of food stamps, which must be spent only on food. The idea is that the state guides the spending of welfare mothers, and the women resent the implicit moral judgment that they don't have the capacity to care properly for their children.
They're going to get to that.
We are bitter because we are faced with trying to raise children without money. People on welfare, if they had money,
try to have fathers in the home. The nuclear family is what they're trying to ruin.
Money enough to at least exist on. I'm not saying, because I don't have a college diploma, that I should have, $300 a week, but I'm saying that people on welfare have a right to a decent living in a rich country like America. And, like we can always, send charity overseas, and it's, for years, we've been in poverty as a country. I've
always said that.
And that I'm concerned with, a country that, gets concerned with hunger in India, but it's not concerned with hunger in the United States.
Why can't you go back to a trade school or something like that, learn a trade? You don't have to go to college.
They talk about planning for a future.
Instead, they've been bringing illegals in to do a lot of the trades.
Future. You have to first have something to plan with. You don't plan a meal, unless you got, something to eat. And you don't plan a future unless you have something to plan with. And this is what, society's going to have to face. They're talking about future America. And, our kids are part of that future society.
That was his plan.
And to deprive them from the time that they're, babies, now they say, work with 16-year-olds. That's crazy. A 16-year-old, it's too late.
Growing up without enough money is hard enough, but there are other cold realities about growing up on ADC.
They do the drugs.
Welfare kids usually live in neighborhoods like Cleveland's Huff. They can see the results of violence, even murder, around their own homes.
Yep. Some of them are
and they must learn to live with it.
Tammy, doing it under more than one name, and they just hand it out. They're doing that to illegals too, though. They're giving them a lot of free stuff.
Hate to see these second generations of welfare coming up, and one of the things I think is more crucial to is the youth that's in the ghetto, because most of the youth that's coming up, they're ashamed.
All this free
tell
money,
their buddies, say, well, yeah, we on welfare, we getting ADC or food stamps and things like this here.
Everybody in my whole neighborhood was on relief. We was just running around and kid about it. Because everybody in my neighborhood was on relief, but I was ashamed to go out my neighborhood and tell somebody I was
scam the system to stay on.
Yeah, ashamed of it.
If a child does not have adequate clothing, they don't want to go. If they can't participate and go to the football games and to the movies, they don't want to go to school. So it starts when a child is small. They recognize the fact that they don't have the things that other children have. Children realize when they're different. They know, I don't care how small
they have a daddy
you are, you know when you're different. And not only that, when you go to the public schools, many times the teachers make you know that you're different.
I grew up in a crazy poor family, and we didn't do that. As a kid, we just go work on the
welfare children don't have. I was not able to buy, white shirts for ties and things. If a mother go out like I do, I buy my child these knit sweaters and bandana sweaters and things like that. And he wear them with his pants. But Friday, he got to wear a shirt and a tie, and I just don't have it. They have sent my child home twice, last year for not being dressed in a tie. And I mean, it made me real mad. And I called the principal and told him, I said, look, my child ain't got no shirt and ties. Now, if you want him to have one, you buy him one.
Dress codes back then, yeah.
Even in school, constant and subtle discriminations are made between welfare children and other youngsters. To qualify for most free services, such as milk, a pupil must be on welfare, and thus declares himself a welfare child.
Exactly, Kurt. He did it on purpose. And it's worked so far.
The teacher would tell everybody, the kids, about him being on welfare, and he didn't want to know he was on welfare.
Turn it around. A couple more decades. I'm seeing more and more black people on YouTubes and platforms
that lunch card
speaking
they give
out
him,
against us.
It's only a special lunch that he get for welfare
I'd like to
children,
see the nuclear
and it's
family
not enough. They don't get no kind of dessert with it or ice cream, and I always have to give him more money to go with it.
Yeah, I second that too, Tammy.
They ain't gonna give but a handful of crumbs to a mother. What do you think the young teenager gonna do? Why do you think that's down here on Huff?
They want to keep them dependent.
When it gets dark, they have to go out here and survive.
Get them voting for lifetimes, several generations. I was thinking the same thing earlier. The fish for a day. Trade schools. Why can't a lot of them go to the trade schools? We're lacking in that. Instead, they bring illegals in. And it doesn't just have to be building trades. There's other trades. A lot of the data processing and stuff like that, too.
This is survival and escape in Huff. Music, movement, and this moment. But in the morning, no job that will pay a living wage.
Enough that when they get out, they do anything. There was a story of a woman, a black woman that graduated with high honors, and she couldn't read or write. She was using her phone to it would talk to her, and she could talk to it, and it would print. That's how she passed stuff. I second that, Kurt. He was a son of a bee. He was a racist son of a bee, too. He didn't care about helping him. He wanted to keep him that way. the black community was growing wealthier and wealthier until this, right up until this time.
And
Start
it
out
begins
working
again.
in the stores and fast food and stuff like that, and work your way up.
Brenda is 19, unmarried, and she has just had a baby.
First, second, third.
She's learning to care for him on her own. She's trying to get a job to support him, and she lives with her aunt, who has 5 children of her own.
19, so 19
Money was the reason she decided not to marry Kenneth, the father of her child.
I mean, I would have married him, you know, while I was carrying the baby, but he had no job and couldn't support us and his sister getting married. When his sister getting married, so I said, wait.
A lot of that too. I hear stories about the CIA and all that was pushing drugs into these communities, and got a lot of them hooked on drug sales and using drugs.
I plan on marrying him next year, no sooner than next year. Have to give him time to work first. I mean, what's the sense of marrying somebody?
Jay, I didn't know that John F. Kennedy was also.
That's his job to support you and the baby. Not my job to support him and the baby. So after he started working, you know, work more than he did working.
Okay, I read it
then
wrong.
I married him.
I read it wrong.
And I think he's able to take care of
he did. I think he was connected to the CIA.
Many of the girls who go on welfare never graduate from high school. A girl who gets pregnant in most high schools is automatically expelled. Usually she doesn't come back. She's on her way to a lifetime of dependence on welfare.
Yeah, abortion started...
the Webster School in Washington, D.C. is a high school for pregnant girls.
So this is happening in 67.
A psychotherapy session is a weekly part of the curriculum.
Pushing the abortion.
I first found out that I had become
exactly what he said.
And when I found out that there was this school called Webster, I thought
and
that
the abortion clinics is...
I was going to be shut out away from the other...
billions of dollars at the abortion clinics.
People, and that I was going to be an outcast. But
it's government money.
When I came into Webster, it seems that I had more what you would say, people on my side.
You know what happened once they started giving away the free abortions and all that happened? Actually, they were having more kids because they were thought it was easy and free to having more sex, you know? So they were having a lot of abortions, but they were also getting pregnant a lot more and having even more kids, actually. Because they weren't trying not to get pregnant.
More attention going towards my way. And with the help of Miss Gill, and then with the help of some of my good friends here, I seem to be making it and all.
Being here with these girls,
Roger Stone
you know, they are closer to you. I think that all of us are closer together than girls that have not been pregnant, because they all have their opinions and they can easily say things. But we have, you know, we're all going through the experience.
Mrs. Patricia Schiller is a clinical psychologist. She directs the conversation toward future plans and prospects.
Well, I've got a job. I'm going for an interview today. And I filed for support from the father in the court. And it should be coming through by the time I get back in school in September.
The thing is, a lot of them don't have a decent job or even a job.
For a long time, I was under the firm belief that no one really has any excuse for being on public assistance. But when my grandparents and my father found out I was pregnant, their first attitude was, we aren't going to do anything for you. And my grandmother told me from the beginning, you may not bring this baby into my house. Now, she has responsibility for me until I'm 18 years old. I talked to my social worker here at school, and I have talked to people down at child welfare. And it's being made possible right now for my baby's born in September.
Really, Gregory,
for me to put that child
I don't know
in a foster
if they can
home.
legally run again. You know, I think the courts will say no.
And to visit it. And they'll take care of it until after I finish the 12th grade. And I'll be 18, I'll be on my own, and then I can provide for my child in my own way. And therefore, I think that it can be a good program.
When a girl drops out before completing her high school education, she finds it difficult to get a job to take care of the baby. In many instances, this would force a girl to go on public welfare.
I second that.
Mrs. Fabola Gill is the school's principal.
FLGBA.
And there doesn't seem to be any way out of this for me. She is likely to have another out-of-wedlock child, and as the babies continue coming, she gets farther and farther down into her state of depression.
Many of our young girls would like to work, and they have tried. They really have tried to support their family, but the system and everything else just tears them down, and eventually they just become satisfied with welfare. They don't try anymore because they see there's no sense of trying until this whole system is changed.
Jeanette Salters, a welfare mother, works in Head Start. She receives a small supplement to her check.
People talk about the ADC mothers don't want anything. They're not going to ever get anything. This is the same feeling that they have. They have tried and they want jobs, but nobody's going to give them a job. And the first thing they holler, well, you on ADC, and you don't have any experience. And how can you have experience when you're just coming out of school? And nobody's willing to try, to give them a chance.
This documentary was made
and
in
I'm beginning to believe, and so are most of the parents, that people want you on ADC. They like you there. They can control you on ADC. And a lot of them just feel, well, I might as well sit here and get what I can. And they do have to cheat and lie and steal and to try to beat the system and try to just survive, not really live. Most of them are just surviving.
They think they're entitled to free money. A lot of them.
Welfare departments claim that they want to encourage marriage and thus get women off the welfare rolls. But the investigation of a woman's eligibility for ADC discourages the beginning of any relationship with a man and marriage.
Well, if he's someone who is sincerely interested in you, you would like perhaps to invite him to dinner. You would like to, maybe he would like to spend the day with you. And
we're paying for it.
If this happens, and you have a neighbor who particularly don't care for you, then the welfare department will hear about it, and then they suppose that this man is living there, or that you are supporting him out of your funds, you're feeding him with your funds, or if you claim you're not feeding him out of your funds, then their answer will be, then he's giving you money.
And she said, oh, you can't have a boyfriend. We don't allow that. And I wanted to know why. And she said, because it doesn't look right, with the kids. And so I said, I still don't see where they have anything to do with me with a boyfriend.
He's living there. They should check how much money he's bringing.
So you have to get rid of him. You have to make plans to marry him. And I told her I wasn't getting married. I wasn't ready for it. I had just got out of one. And I said, now look, you're going to tell me, here I am, 37 years old at that.
When I was a kid, we'd go out and pick something called milkweed, top of the milkweed plants, and we cooked that like asparagus. It was like creamed asparagus to live. We'd go out and pick wild berries and everything, and my mom would can them and wild out in the apple orchards and stuff that weren't around anymore. There's a few apple trees and peach and pears. We'd pick all that. So my mom would can those and everything. We found a way to live.
Time. And I'd been married.
I grew up from a family of 8 kids way out in the country.
Got 5 kids here in the home. Farms. And had been married to this one man for 16 years. And you're going to tell me I can't have a boyfriend? And so she said, well, we doesn't allow the ADC mothers with boyfriend. And I couldn't understand that. So she left. When she left, well, then she come back to tell me that my case was denied. This is what happened. She come back to tell me that they had denied me, that I could not get on the aid.
If a man marries you, that he should, take on the initiative of supporting your family. And, to tell a man that makes, $125, $135 a week, that he should accept me and 9 kids and support us is crazy. Because,
who wants to marry someone that already has 9 kids from different baby daddies? Isn't it? That's what's wrong.
Just, realistically, I would feel that if I married a man in this position, that, it wouldn't take but maybe 6 months. If it took that long, he would begin to resent my kids. He would hate me, he would beat me, and he'd scream at the kids. He'd start beating the kids out of frustration. And, maybe it wouldn't be because he didn't love me and the kids, But because he was, being deprived of, just having, a pair of shoes on his feet and proper food for himself, for kids that he wasn't responsible for. And this is, thinking realistically.
Go back to it. All the help should be temporary.
In Cleveland and elsewhere, very little economic incentive exists for women to get off welfare.
They would like for you to go out and go to work or even seek part-time employment. But if you do this, then most of what you make is taken away from you.
They receive only a small part of the extra income if they work. The jobs which they can get.
But if they work, they also can move up and you get higher positions at these jobs once you become a valuable employee.
Rarely offer very much more money than the welfare check itself. In a pilot project in Cleveland, they are allowed to keep only enough to bring them up to the state's welfare minimum. They are encouraged to go to school and get training, but even after training, good jobs are scarce. Beverly Siegel, a Cleveland social worker, visits Mrs. Fanny Brooks, who has left a Title V job training program to care for her children.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about today is the fact that you'll be going off of the training program. And now that you're going back onto ADC alone, it will be cut back, to regular ADC, which will be $92 difference. And
remember, this was made in '67. This
and
video.
It's going to be difficult,
so don't
I
be
imagine,
scared about
to get
the numbers
used to
as
living
much
on
as
that
you're
type of budget again.
Thinking.
Yes, it will be. But I would rather have a small amount and have peace and happiness and harmony in my home than have a lot of difficulties and different problems. I didn't choose this position that I'm in, and I wouldn't want my kids to do it for nothing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But they tend to grow up and do the same thing.
A wise man did yesterday. All right, you want to try that one for us?
I had a video recently when the mother was mad at the son, who was like 18 or 17, something like that, and he gotten a job, and she was mad at him because, she thought that he should do the welfare thing too, instead of do a job and move up. 17, 18 years old. She wanted him to do the same system she was doing.
Leroy McQueen, who is getting his high school diploma and hopes to go into computer work, is a welfare father on a training program. It's a myth that the welfare rolls are filled with able-bodied men. Less than 1% of those on welfare are capable of working. In 1962, realizing that ADC ignored men and tended to break up families, Congress passed the ADCU program, Aid for the Dependent Children of the Unemployed. Mr. McQueen worked in a print shop for 7 years. One day, the shop went out of business. Mr. McQueen could not find another job. Shortly after he went on welfare, Mr. McQueen's wife died, and he was faced with the prospect of raising his 5 children himself.
That's right.
The welfare department gave him a temporary professional homemaker.
A lot of them live together and do have guys that are bringing in some money, but they just don't get married.
A midday snack is water and Jell-O. Now he remains on the welfare rolls as he gets an education. He has the added burden of raising a family.
Hi.
He's trying to be a decent dad.
He does the cooking and cleaning up himself.
I agree. Again, like this was made in '67.
Not so much
and
noise.
See how all this turned out since then.
Come on, eat.
The thing isn't giving them more money; it's to get
Gregory,
them on the
Reginald, Gina, Stevie, come on, eat.
Dinner is usually beans with some ham hocks, and as in most welfare homes, no milk. Almost all starches, little meat.
That belongs to me here, Reginald.
You're right. They're trying to make it sympathetic.
Mr. McQueen's dilemma is compounded by the fact that he must find help for his children while he is at school or work.
I was doing about Lincoln. LBJ wanted to keep him poor. He did a good job.
Mr. McQueen has many problems. He lives for the day when he can earn enough so that his children have proper meals. Yeah. The day when he can provide for his family adequately. When he can relax with some assurance about the future.
Is old enough to, I would have been about 10.
How many roads must a man walk down?
The electric guitar is in and out of the pawn shop, a reflection of Mr. McQueen's financial fortunes.
And how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? And how many times must those cannonballs be fired before they're forever banned? Oh yeah, let me tell you that the answer is when it is and in the west. The answer is blowing in the west. Oh yeah, let me tell you. How many years can a mountain exist?
3 TV stations, ABC. Yeah, everyone seeing that MSNBC has changed its name to MS something news or something like that. I forget exactly what it is. It's crazy. MS. I forgot what it is. They're changing it. It's ridiculous. Oh, first marriage. Are you paying the alimony? If you don't mind me asking, Bernard. Sometimes they rake you over the coals on that stuff. Sometimes. Me, I've been together with my wife 47 years, married 45 technically. It says on my phone, Gloria the boss. That's how you stay married.
Today, Mr. McQueen does not go to school because the homemaker didn't show up.
What does that have to do with going to school?
His children play in the backyard.
We used to play, when we were a kid. MS Now, that's it. You got it, Kurt. I don't think renaming it's going to make a goddamn bit of difference.
This would help me more than anything else. Just someone to clean the house.
I just hope they break it all up.
Cooking I do generally most myself, but even then, the right person cooking right, I could stand that, I think. But I think mostly what we need here is just a person to be in the house and help with the cleaning and getting the kids off to school. Now that I go to school myself and giving them their lunch.
I wonder if some of them could join forces in a way, share a home with, say, a guy with some kids and a woman with some kids, and they kind of combine together, even if they don't get married, and share the cost and stuff like that. And it would work a lot better. And maybe they would end up getting married. Who knows?
And I could take over in the evenings.
In the past, I was able to get you an emergency homemaker, and this seems to be a very bad month. They're completely filled up.
More socialist,
but the woman says that's in charge of the referral says that she certainly will be having someone come out here as soon as possible. But I know that in the meantime, you can't afford to miss any more school.
I really want to finish school and get back to work. This is my most important objective. And I don't know, it just seems like it's so far away. The more I look after it, the more it seems like it just gets farther away, and then problems come along.
Depends on how bad you want it.
Get a babysitter or a housekeeper when you need it.
If you want it,
for instance, today I'm home all day today because I don't have one.
Hello. Hello, Mr. McQueen.
Hi, Mr. Sigma. How are you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Okay. What happened on the babysitter? Did you find anything?
As far as I know, they still haven't gotten anyone. She told me that she'd keep trying, and as soon as she would find one, she'd give me a call.
What about those little pants that the boys wear? Really.
Years ago, the older kids helped take care of the younger ones.
And
kids need shoes too.
I
I was the
can't
second
promise
oldest, so I
anything
was
because,
part
of course,
of
it
that.
has to be approved several times along the line, but I will give it a try.
Of the $8 billion spent on welfare every year, less than half ever reaches welfare clients.
Yeah, less than half. Did you hear that? It's a lot more than $8 billion now, especially with the illegals on the systems.
The welfare
That pisses
bureaucracy
me off,
grinds
the illegals.
extremely slowly. The total paperwork, the total number of approvals needed, the total number of departments a request has to go through takes an awful long time. The most frustrating thing that I run across, and I feel is the reason why many social workers leave, is the fact that there is a volume of paperwork to do. There's a terrific bureaucratic structure through which every piece of paper must go through, making process.
Now, a lot of this system here is now being used to milk the system and giving it to people that don't even exist. They're stealing from the whole system.
The process is very long and drawn out, and there isn't the time to do the casework that one would actually like to do. Also, it takes an awful long time for a caseworker to get to know the system, the welfare system, and to try and live within it, and perhaps even beat it on occasion. Boy, I think I'd rather work with people that did have the basic necessities of life. It would make it much simpler.
Money laundering, exactly.
If they
seems like
were
all our
given enough money to live on.
That's what the whole war
I think
was.
since '62, the emphasis has been on providing services rather than just becoming an agency that provides the dole or just the money that's needed.
Eugene Burns is the welfare director of Cuyahoga County, which includes the city of Cleveland.
With services that we're going into now, with the emergency service that we are providing, I think, which is a big improvement over what it was before, in addition to the regular casework services.
The emphasis on services, not money for clients, has led Cleveland women like Louise Gaston into the welfare rights movement. She wants more money for welfare clients so that welfare children can grow up without a sense of deprivation.
How about a sense of getting a job and moving your family forward?
Just because we're on
Each
welfare
generation
doesn't mean that
should be
we
doing
are
better than the generation before.
down and us. We're still people. They still are fond of their father. My daughter, she doesn't care for him, but I try to teach her that after all, that still is her father. He takes him nowhere. He doesn't come to see him. He doesn't support him. You take that trash out.
A lot of them get attitudes later.
I am having proceedings now for a divorce. It's been hectic, although I've had to raise them by myself. I haven't had too much problem, even though they are teenagers.
And what happened in our family is the older kids help bring a little money into the house.
Mrs. Gaston protests what she feels is the injustice of the American welfare system in not providing enough for families. But organizing against it is not easy.
But organizing takes quite a bit out of you. You're tired. Sometimes you're bitter. You get angry because people don't see life like you do. Especially when things are that you're trying to push are for their benefit as well as yours. I've had women slam the door in my face and tell me, well, whatever you're fighting for, if you get it, I'm going to get it anyway, so what I'm going to get out and fight for? What I'm going to get out and knock on doors for? I mean, these things make you angry.
It made no sense.
But you learn to look at them and feel sorry for them.
Cleveland women meet in Mrs. Gaston's home. The desire to change and improve the system has brought hundreds of Cleveland welfare recipients into welfare locals. The movement is a young one in Cleveland, and nationally it's about a year old. The experience of being in an organization is a new one for most of the women. Building a membership means gaining a strategy for organizing.
I was under the impression,
they only got bigger and bigger.
I was told that no one person have to join a local to get
Democrats
any kind
back
of
then
help,
were always promising more money
from the local.
That's what your group says.
That's right. You don't have to.
But all the other groups don't.
See it like you did, because I brought it back to my group, how you all felt, remember? That this was primary.
The women believe that the first step in reforming the welfare system is for them to get adequate money.
So
They do not feel they need rehabilitation by caseworkers who make continual investigations into their eligibility for welfare.
Necessarily fair.
They want enough money to raise their families. They want a chance at jobs which will pay them decently. They want a share in making the decisions which affect their lives.
$50 cut in their check, and you're going to tell them to give you $1, then you'll see that their check is right. He said, yeah, if they want to get it raised, or if they want their money back. Now, this is what he said the National Coordinating Committee was supporting, and I'm in thorough disagreement with that.
I think we went over this
change if she gets remarried?
I think we did agree that in terms of Cleveland organizing, that the denial of service wasn't to take place if a person didn't have their dues. Yeah, that was the understanding I think we all had.
Paul Younger is a Protestant minister who has worked with the poor for a decade.
That we're trying to get
years ago, the church used to
from
be
all over the city
part of the places where they
into our
stuff
locals. And they'll be coming to the food stamps
and stuff like that.
Okay,
the churches aren't
trying to sign people up to join welfare rights movement. And what's been happening is people on welfare for years have really been just mistreated, and now we're banding together to really get something going.
You're showing your age, Gregory. They're saying the age of your kids.
Will get in touch with you.
My son's 43.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, you can train.
An interviewer from a local television station.
Mrs. Plummer, today is your beginning of recruitment?
Yes. We're out here to take and recruit relief clients to take and join our local union, welfare union, all over the state.
Jobs are the answer to get out of the welfare system.
We want to accomplish better relationships with the relief
growth
department.
In the economy.
We want to take
like Trump's
the things that our workers tell us that we can't have, like household furnishings and clothing orders and car fare going back and forth to the hospital.
Ladies want to sign up?
Success in organizing is more than getting people to sign a piece of paper. It means creating an organization which can build effective pressure on welfare departments, which can deliver economic benefits to its members. And that means helping persons to receive their full welfare payments under the present laws.
We're trying to help you get some of the things that you're eligible for getting, and the union will help you because we're trying to get everybody to stick together. One person just don't have to fight for themselves. All fight for each other.
Welfare authorities in Washington disagree with the emphasis of welfare clients groups. Washington believes that rehabilitation through employment training will solve welfare problems. How is this to be done? The head of the Department of Social and Rehabilitation Services is Mary Switzer.
I think you have to have it organized. You have to find ways to take care of the children. If the mother is reluctant to leave home with the children, you have to have increased daycare facilities. And you have to begin, in many ways, at a different level than you did with a handicapped person who may have had some schooling, even though they may have been out of the mainstream of life. I think you have to find the right kind of training with jobs at the end.
It makes you feel old.
And I think all elements in the community have to be involved in this employment problem. We should encourage employment not only with the end result of getting people not dependent upon public welfare or public assistance, but to help them, if there is a low welfare standard, adequately to supplement it. And this has been one of the chief failures, I think, of the administration of public welfare in this country. I think that it has been a great mistake
some judges
to
just hate
not
you,
allow
Gregory?
And not to give the incentive to people to keep what they earn up to a point. Now, obviously, when they have a job that is going to be permanent and they are secure in it, then, of course, you wouldn't want them to be dependent on public welfare. But until they reach that point, what they earn, they ought to be encouraged to earn in order to supplement welfare payments, particularly where they're inadequate. But usually what happens is that if they earn a little, they are penalized by having it taken out of their assistance payments, so the incentive to work is not as great as it otherwise would be.
Well, at first they should do it like 50 cents on the dollar penalized.
Ms. Switzer puts her emphasis on the training programs and other services which will lead to the employment of welfare mothers. The welfare rights movement puts its emphasis on giving enough money to welfare clients to enable them to live decently. The form of the welfare grant is not considered as important as its size. Dr. George Wiley is a key organizer of the welfare rights movement.
Used to be taboo.
We are finding across the country that there has been increasing discussion in high places of such things as the guaranteed annual income and other things that are supposed to be.
What are we hearing now? Guaranteed annual income. You get it regardless of working or not, huh?
Panaceas to solve the problems of the poor. Well, welfare was supposed to be a panacea 30 years ago. And all of those people who are poor today know that those kinds of easy solutions did not work. The thing that every welfare recipient knows is that there are 2 or 3 basic issues, and the welfare rights movement is beginning to articulate those issues loudly and clearly. That is that the most basic issue for a welfare recipient is enough money to feed and clothe and house the members of his family. And very few people who are talking about a guaranteed annual income are talking about giving poor people amounts of money that would allow them to live in decency and with a sense of adequacy. And
yeah, all that money's just going to grow on trees, right? The more country produces, the wealthier it gets. So the more productive we can become, the wealthier the country gets, and the standard of living goes up for everybody, actually.
It is that the welfare rights movement is going to have to bring across this country, that we won't have any guaranteed annual income or any family allowance or any other scheme that doesn't provide people with at least the basic necessities of life for their families. And the second thing is that there must be a system of income distribution that gives to people
welfare, wealth redistribution. Here we go, socialism.
The money that they are entitled to as a right, and you are entitled to your welfare.
Entitled to as a right, huh?
As a right that gives it to them with a sense of decency, a sense of dignity and respect. That you needn't be the subject of these investigations. This June, the National Coordinating Committee has organized and set up a campaign with a very simple theme that every welfare recipient understands. And that is that welfare recipients are tired of waiting. We are tired of waiting for checks. We are tired of waiting for the little pittance that people give out. But it is going to be a campaign to demand more money now. And so all over this country, welfare recipients will be organizing to go to the welfare department to present a very simple form outlining the most basic needs that they have for food, for clothing, for shelter, and to demand that the welfare department fill those needs now.
Basic needs.
They're using this system now for the illegals. They need more dependents. That's what the government needs.
On June 30th, welfare clients in Cleveland marched, along with welfare recipients in 40 other cities. They sought to build pressure on local welfare departments to give more money to clients.
Up and down Ohio's roads. This is a history lesson. It tells you how you got where you are. It ain't nowhere. Okay? Up and down Ohio's roads, up and down we go. All we get's the run around, the state gets all the dough. Pity the kids on ABC, how can they stay in line when welfare checks are smaller than in 1959? Oh, up and down Ohio's roads.
When were they getting them in 59?
All we get to run around, the state gets all the dough.
We are walking for more money now and basic needs now. Our checks are too small to buy essential clothing and household items. We call on county welfare to write a special orders to meet these needs now, because our rent and utility allowance is too small to rent our families decent adequate housing or pay our utility bills. We call on the state welfare department to raise the standards for rent and utilities now, because our children cannot live decently on 83 cents of the bare minimum, or what it cost in December of 1965.
This type of demonstration, an orderly, well-mannered demonstration that existed today, brings out to the public and brings out to those public officials in Columbus that there is a real need and that something should be done and has to be done. And I think, I hope that they're successful. But as far as staff, as I mentioned, staff has an obligation. We're a service organization. We're government employees. We have to serve the public. Our doors are open every day. Our staff is accountable for that type of service that is mandated under the statute, and we have to perform.
But so even back then, when
this is my captain bed. I stepped down over that thing and turned.
They've learned now some people to double dip and get it under more than one name.
You know, who are eligible and what. Mr. Gaston, will you come over here?
GRANTWOOD.
Want a couple more over here?
The usual press coverage of demonstrations gets a different reaction from the welfare client and the welfare administrator.
I want you two to hang on to this together as if you're handing them.
Well, I can't hand. I only hand what I.
No, this is for all of it. You're representing all of them for the moment. We got other pictures.
Well, if that's all right with the rest of you.
I'm sure it's all right.
Is it okay?
They're all smiling, so it must be all right. You smile a little bit. Smile.
She doesn't want to do the work. Looks like a bit of work, but
don't put it in front of my face, though.
Will you bring closer together, please? That's it. And smile a little. Look right up at him.
All right. Trying to get pictures.
Oh, that's it. Let's give him a big smile.
All right.
She acts mad at him.
Your picture being a paper, you want to smile, don't you?
I'm serious. I mean, this is no playing matter. This is serious.
We're serious too. I just I think it makes sense.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else like their picture taken? All right. Please convey to the group my appreciation for their demonstration and the manner in which they conducted it. Thanks again. Come back again.
Oh, I'm tired. I want him to take a bath and go to bed.
Complaints were filed and hearings conducted throughout the summer of 1967 to bring welfare payments up to the highest possible level.
That just keeps you on the system. It should be temporary, like other people said in the chat here.
At the end of the summer, welfare mothers from across the country met in Washington for the first national convention of the organized poor in the 60s.
What if they still have that? Does anyone know in chat? We need money,
A bill had passed the House of Representatives which would freeze the welfare rolls at the 1967 level, would increase employment training in other services, and would compel women with children to leave their homes to work under threat that their assistance would be cut off. They came to lobby, but less than half a dozen officials consented to see them.
And they won't meet with us and talk to us about our problems. They locked the doors. They locked the doors when we came up here on the steps. But it's our building.
George Wiley was one of the speakers. Dick Gregory was another speaker.
They don't know how much harm they're actually doing to themselves, not getting ahead, and to their kids.
Unborn babies will be grateful for.
Some of them are still getting welfare after several generations. You think some of them would get a job?
We are here today, and we're not mad, we're just tired. But I hope they don't make the same mistake they made with the freedom movement. We came here 4 years ago.
freedom movement, we weren't mad, we were just tired. Today, the freedom movement could not come back because we're not tired, we're mad now.
Give me back what you stole from me. You don't have to talk to me.
Here goes the whole reparations vote already.
People say to me, is it just words? Oh, baby, it ain't words to me. I mean what I say. I got 7 children. I got 2 sons. All they can see is the Vietnam War. But my son say, I won't go. I said, praise be your name, child. You ain't going no damn place. And we spreading the word. You know what rescuers is doing? I tell you what they're doing.
That's the
we
way
know
out
we
of
need a new
the
welfare system. We don't control that system. We don't need them people telling me what I need, what I should do, where I should go, how I should act. I'm gonna act like me.
The doors of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare were locked. They could not gain entrance.
Why should they? They're not going in there for meetings. They're going there to raise hell.
I wish I had some gas. I wish I had some tear gas. Okay. I wish I had some tear gas. Lock them in. Lock them in. Where's that?
They did get into a few congressional offices, but at least in one instance, the reception was somewhat less than friendly.
What we got to have. We're going to tell him he's not going to tell us. And today,
they really are under the wrong impression
country
about
music
this whole
as,
thing. They think it's a black power thing, but it's not a black power.
What is black power?
We don't want black power in the
Yeah, you mean you're black?
A black power advocate tried to capitalize on the dilemma of welfare recipients.
It doesn't matter whether it's black power or white power.
What we are, it's just as many white people. You know,
it doesn't make any difference whether it's white or black.
You know what power is?
The only thing I'm worried about is my welfare check being cut off, and I don't want it. And I don't want it if I decide to
help. All right, because of time, I'm going to go on to the Bill Barr stuff. Do I have it over here? No. All right, I'll go back here. Bill Barr. Go to my channel, I guess. Go back. Bill Barr's secret meetings plot to go after Trump.
It's very easy to know why I am being persecuted and no one else it's being charged or persecuted. It's very easy. I called the FBI to report Bill Barr and Armstrong Williams. I have notes of every single meeting. One meeting can be about visa for someone, or another meeting can be about January 6th or RICO case. I have a quote here that was like, Barr believes the FBI will go to Trump House soon. And one thing that I heard a lot is like how they go to prevent America to have Trump again. One thing that I learned very fast and very in the beginning is like,
he used to talk out of both sides of his mouth. That liar.
And I remember the biggest conversation they had at that point. It is like, what kind of charge that we can bring against Trump? And that's when Bill Barr, and I will never forget that. Bill Barr was like,
who built?
They claim they built Europe because it's a very difficult type of charge
who
to defend.
Oh, the left, yeah.
Armstrong has this powerful friends. He's friends with like Bill Barr. He's friends with Ben Carson. He's friend with the mayor of DC. And he has like all this list of powerful people and people like with a lot of money. I know they do some business together. All the time Armstrong needs something, he calls Bill Barr. Like can be, for example, approve a visa for someone, he calls Bill Barr. Or, for example, do some kind of lobbying with, for example, Turkish Airlines. He calls Bill Barr. Bill Barr is like the person that we call to resolve any kind of problems or situations. I have notes of every single meeting. One meeting can be about visa for someone, or another meeting can be about January 6th or RICO case. In February 27 of 2023, Here's my notes. They launched this meeting about RICO case. I do not know if they have meetings before about that. That was the first time that I heard and I learned about that. So they bring that case against Trump, and I remember the biggest conversation they had at that point. It is like, what kind of charge that we can bring against Trump? And they discussed like few charges under American law, and that's when Bill Barr, and I will never forget that, Bill Barr was like, we should bring RICO because it's a very difficult type of charge to defend. Bill Barr was like very focused and bring the RICO case because he explained to Fannie Willis
all part of the plan.
RICO charge is one of the most hard to defend in court because under the American law, the RICO charge can be anything. Like it's not very specific. So people who is charged with RICO case, they have a very hard time to defend themselves. We had this meeting with Fannie Willis. At that point, I didn't have idea about her, what she worked with. I just don't know her.
See, they're all working together.
She presented herself as like someone who's close to Armstrong, someone who's attorney. And all the time I was like, okay, it's just like one more meeting that we had. And then in these meetings, that's when I started to take notes and like try to keep everything that to prove that what's going on. One thing that I understood very well is like Bill Barr and Armstrong and all the politicians too, they're very focused like in how they go to stop Trump. And one thing that I heard a lot is like how they go to prevent America to have Trump again. So in my views of politics, what I think it is, they probably realized very soon that if Trump runs again, he probably will win the election as he did. So in that point, they just want to like prevent that. One of these meetings, for example, was launched in March 15 of 2022. And this meeting was at Sinclair Broadcast. And in this meeting was when I like started to learn more about Fannie Willis and about some guy called Jack Smith and about investigation involving January 6th. I have a quote here that was like, Barr believes the FBI will raise, and I put it in parentheses, go to Trump House soon. That's when was like I start to learn and to be sure about what they're doing. Was like they're planning and they're create crimes and situations to go after everyone. In that meeting, we also spoke about the meeting that we had with Facebook, and the person in Facebook was helping us and giving us direction to create content against Trump and against the January 6th was called Daniele. That was like one of the first meetings that I had about this plan they had to go after everyone who works or support Trump. And that was back in September 13 of 2021. So in this meeting was me, Armstrong, Shermichael, and Bill Barr by phone. And they spoke about January 6th committee. They authorized the committee to investigate the events about January 6th. We started like with some names. They also gave a lot of names here. We have like Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, Jeffrey Clark,
people they're going after.
Proud Boy Group, Scott Paris, Jim Jordan, a group called Stop They Steal, Brad, again, Hafesbergen, Shamos, Ruby Freeman, Patrice Poloni, Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes, and we have some target people, which is like the people they want to target more. and there was like Stuart Rhodes and Enrique Tarrio and Roger Stone. And here I have a quote. It was like Barr and Cheney once focused at Roger Stone, Rhodes, and Tarrio, and Bannon. And also in Kimberly Guilford, who is close to Trump. Armstrong goes on TV, or he goes on social media, or he goes over his Twitter account or X account, and he claims he's Republican. He's this person who is like extremely patriotic. He loves his country and everything. But at the same time, he was lunch meetings with Bill Barr to plan against Trump and against people involved in January 6th. Armstrong never got caught for things that he does. He was inside of the Capitol Hill in January 6th. And then I started to understand he's never caught for that because he's friend with the mayor of DC. He was friend with the chief of police of DC. I'm talking about people who went to jail. And these people, they have families, they have lives. Some people with cancer, I know a case like with cancer, the person got arrested and went to jail because of January 6th. But at the same time, those people are there because people like Armstrong was telling them to be there, was telling them like, no, it's completely fine if you be here. And when the things start to happen over there, Armstrong is like, no, we can go inside and let's do this. So what kind of person does that with people?
Yep, more to come on that. Okay, I'm gonna end it there. Rebel Chick Subs up next, and then Charlie with the Country Conservative. All right, take care. God bless everyone. Maybe see you tomorrow, probably. Bye bye.